On today's show, we've got a special episode. It's the official Locked On NHL mock draft. On today's show on Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi Kalakash, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, with Sebastian High, Head Scout and Director of European Scouting for Dobber Prospects. And on today's show, we've got the official Locked On NHL mock draft. All of our Locked On hosts for all of the NHL teams got together and mocked the first round of the 2024 NHL draft. They each made their picks based on their kind of preferences and selections, team needs, all that stuff. So this is a more than 32 person effort to get this together for you, and we're going to breaking down on today's show. This is part one, so we're going to go through the top 16. In the first segment, we'll look at the top 5. In the second segment, we'll look at picks 6 through 11, and we'll end things off in the third segment with picks 12 through 16. Before we get into any of that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get up to $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNHL to get started. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next and what you thought of the episode. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, as always, please leave us a rate and review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get things started right away here with our Locked On NHL mock draft. The first pick of the draft, no surprise here, the San Jose Sharks and JD Young select Macklin Celebrini of Boston University. Let's talk about the player. Fantastic talent, right?
Absolutely fantastic. He is probably the best NCAA draft eligible that I've ever scouted, and we watched Adam Fantilli a lot last season, so The bar is not necessarily low on that front. But Celebrini scored 32 goals, added 32 assists in 36 games as the youngest player in college hockey with Boston University. He is a do-it-all two-way centerman. Is really effective defensively, drops low to support his defenseman, is probably the best rush player in this entire draft class, plays with pace and deception and dynamism, and is very middle driven. His entire style of play is incredibly NHL ready, and he's going to be a plug and play top 6 piece right out of the gate in October for San Jose. And I'm very excited to see how he looks for the Sharks, because I would be absolutely astounded if he is not the pick at number 1 come draft day. So the mock draft here does not exactly diverge early on in the process.
Absolutely. I mean, 32 goals and 32 assists in 38 games in the NCAA as a freshman, as the youngest prospect, as the youngest player in the nation in college hockey. Is absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, he's made sure of it this season. There's no other choice at first overall. But moving on to second overall, we've got Ivan Demidov going to the Chicago Blackhawks. Jack Bushman with the right decision here at second overall. And yeah, I mean, there's no doubt here, this is the best player available at second. We've both been on this kind of same page the entire season. There's some rumblings that Chicago's going to prefer Artyom Levshunov, but Jack goes with the right choice here with Ivan Demidov, right?
100%. Demidov has potentially the highest upside of any player in this draft class. It's very tight between him and Celebrini in terms of raw upside. In terms of point potential, this is the best player in the draft class. In terms of overall impact, definitely arguments to be made for Celebrini in that stead. But Demidov is incredibly dynamic. He's a do-it-all offensive winger. He can score. He can pass. He's a true creator. He's the best puck handler that we've scouted in the last couple seasons, and it's not particularly close, including Connor Bedard. So very, very, very fun player, but definitely the type of guy that will get NHL fans out of their seats. And at second overall, what more could you really hope for?
Exactly. Let's move on to third overall here. We've got an interesting selection from the Anaheim Ducks selecting Artyom Levshunov. possibly the prospect that everyone's expecting to go at least in the top 3. And I think the Anaheim Ducks really, really need a right-handed defenseman, a right-handed player overall. And in terms of right-handed Ds, Levshunov's up there with the best. I mean, he's so toolsy. He's the most mobile, rangy defenseman not named Anton Salayev in this draft. I love the ability to close gaps in transition. I love the energy, the effort level, the aggression that he brings. He's got fantastic work ethic. He's a funny guy. He's a great person. Interviews really well. Ticks a lot of boxes for NHL GMs. On top of that, he's got some sneaky offensive skill. I mean, he's got a bomb of a shot. Pretty interesting hands in a pinch. You know, he doesn't really flash stick handling skill all that often, but when he needs to get out of trouble, he can do it. Great passing ability as well. He's a player who does need to kind of shape up his decision making, get a bit more consistent with his reads. But I think the habits are something you can work with, especially offensively. He's always jumping into rushes. He's always kind of beating opponents to open ice on the weak side in transition. There's a bunch of stuff to work with Artyom Levshunov. So I think this is a great selection at 3rd overall. There's a couple defensemen that I prefer personally, just based on what I look for in defensemen, but Levshunov's about as sure a bet for the NHL as you get at this range. And yeah, I understand fully the Anaheim Ducks going for him, because the other options in terms of right-handed players, I'd say are probably going to be available around 7, 8, 9, 10. Levshunov's not passing 5, that's for sure. But let's move on to pick number 4 in the 2024 NHL mock draft, the official Locked On mock draft. We have got the big center, Caden Lindstrom's off the board at 4th. The Columbus Blue Jackets pick him up with their 4th overall selection. We've both liked Caden Lindstrom all year. There's been some rumblings about injury concerns and all that. Are you worried? I'm not. Like, this is fine, right?
It's not that he's injury prone. It's that he had a very rough back injury, a herniated disc, and also one hand injury. If those two are related, I think is a very difficult argument to make. So no, I'm not overly concerned. He's back to training 6 days a week, and he's a 6'3", 213-pound power center. Might be a winger at the end of the day in the NHL, but I'd give his chances of playing down the middle at like 70-30. It's pretty optimistic on that front. And he's a great goal scorer. He's super intelligent, so skilled with the puck on his stick. Stylistically, think up the alley of Quinton Byfield, right? Of like really powerful, really strong, very middle driven, but so much soft skill integrated in that entire toolkit, and still quite raw overall. So a bunch of developmental runway with Lindstrom, who could become a really like slam dunk first line centerman if he really, really hits. And if he doesn't, you're still looking at a dynamic, versatile, powerful top 6 piece. So great selection here at number 4 for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and seeing Lindstrom alongside Fantilli would be a bunch of fun.
Absolutely. At 5th overall, now the Montreal Canadiens go with the son of a legend. Tij Iginla goes to the Montreal Canadiens at 5th overall. A great selection from our friends Laura and Scott over at Locked On Canadiens. I like this pick. I think in terms of forwards, in terms of the options available, Tij Iginla is, among the most projectable for sure. If not the most projectable left on the board. Lindstrom's gone. He's there. With Iginla, what's so interesting is the board mechanics, his ability to manage the boards. He's the most dominant board player in this draft, not just because he's physical, but because the energy level's there, the mechanics are there, the ability to, make plays inside of contact, his ability to play small give and goes off the boards. He's incredibly intelligent, a fantastic goal scorer. I mean, he scored 47 goals in 64 games for the Kelowna Rockets of all teams. That's a feat. So he's a great goal scorer for sure, heavy and accurate shot, but also I think the playmaking goes underrated with Iginla. He's got really, really good small area playmaking. He's always drawing a player in and opening up ice for his teammates. Great defensive work rates. He can kind of overskate his lanes. We've talked about that a lot with Iginla this year. He's kind of too much pedal to the metal. He needs to learn to slow down, but teaching a player to rein it in is much easier than teaching them to ramp up the energy, right? So Iginla, for me, Yeah, it's absolutely the right selection here at 5th overall. And that's
100%. I do want to add that very quickly. He's my 4th overall ranked player. I love this guy. I think he'd be a fantastic fit with the Montreal Canadiens. He fits the ideology of the team so well in terms of combining high character, high work ethic on the ice, getting involved in all 3 zones, and being so versatile and dynamic offensively. He has real top 6 play driving upside beyond just being a complimentary scorer. And he's also one of the youngest players in this draft class, and his development curve is absolutely sky high. It is just pointed straight upwards, and I've been a massive fan all year.
Yeah, he's climbed our rankings like no one else in this draft. But that's our first segment done regarding the top 5. We'll look at picks 6 through 11 in the Locked On NHL mock draft. But just before, a quick word from our sponsors at Policy Genius. Life insurance policies are such an important safety net for you and your family, and that's why Policy Genius is such an important tool to help you navigate the plethora of companies and plethora of different contracts that you can get through the private life insurance market. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage, and some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. With life insurance policies, what's really difficult is the amount of options you have, and a lot of people get their life insurance through their workplace, but what's kind of unfortunate about that is if you get fired, if you quit, your life insurance might not follow you. With Policy Genius, they've got a team of licensed experts that are on hand to talk you through the whole process of finding the right life insurance policy for your needs, you and your family's needs. And you can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. And on top of that, their experts have no incentive to prefer one company over the other, or recommend one company over the other, so you know you're getting solid, trustable advice. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl, or click the link in the description below to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. Alrighty, so moving on to picks 6 through 11 here in our second segment for the official Locked On NHL mock draft, where the hosts of our 32 Locked On NHL channels got together and mocked the draft, the first round of the 2024 NHL draft. Moving on to number 6, we have got the Locked On Utah unnamed team. Yeah, I think it's Utah HC. Has it been officially confirmed yet? Regardless.
I mean, for the first season, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But Utah HC picks up Zayne Parekh, the right-handed defenseman of the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. He's my top-ranked defenseman, incredibly mobile, incredibly capable with the puck. He's composure personified. His ability to just stay calm under pressure is ridiculous. He's a true definition of a quarterback in all 3 zones. What I mean by that is he dictates which direction the play takes. That's the most interesting part for me of Zayne Parech's game, is that he's the one controlling play almost at all times. And when he's not controlling play, I think his defense isn't even half as bad as being made out to be. The tape I watched in the OHL playoffs and in the Memorial Cup, like, he was shutting down some of the CHL's top forwards, right? Like, that wasn't bad tape from Parekh defensively.
It's not. Like, he still has a lot of raw habits in his defensive play, but he plays with a high motor. He's quite vicious quite often. Like, he plays with some violence. He's 6 feet, 178 pounds. He's not tiny by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I could see him topping out at like 195, 200 when he's a full-time NHLer, which is perfectly fine, especially when you are such a dynamic offensive defenseman, with which Zayne Parekh is. There's definitely some consistency issues defensively in terms of engagement. He can be a little bit of a passenger at times in the defensive zone, but there's nothing there aren't many things there that I don't see as fixable or as like things that can be progressed a significant amount with targeted development. And I think that Utah would be a very fun franchise for him to land in. I mean, as a first draft selection after the move, Zayne Parekh is like as entertaining and dynamic a player as you could hope to get.
Yeah, I think with Zayne Parekh with the offense, I mean, if he develops properly, works on his defense a bit, I see a point per game defenseman. Like, there's real offensive potential with him.
And if he's playing with Dmitry Simashev of all people, as consecutive
you've got the perfect
picks, that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You got the perfect insulator for him long term. A player who's going to be able to kind of allow him a bit more freedom offensively. Let's move on to 7th overall. We have the Ottawa Senators, Locked On Sens, picking up Sam Dickinson, the big left-handed defenseman out of the London Knights in the OHL. What a fantastic run he's had this season in the OHL. Was a key player for London throughout the entire OHL playoffs, and almost won them the game in the Memorial Cup final. Like, he was one of the main reasons why London was able to stay with the game up until overtime. He scored the game time goal for London on a half breakaway as a defenseman. Like, that's kind of a testament to what kind of game he plays. Dickinson is all aggression. Like, defensively, he's in your face. He's punishing. He's hitting you. He's making plays with a stick that I don't think other defensemen in this draft are capable of. For me, he's the best defensive defenseman in this draft. On top of having real aggression offensively, he's jumping into rushes. He's flying up the ice, carrying pucks himself, or playing kind of give and goes, moving off the puck. A lot of really interesting habits offensively, but I think he's that pure aggression kind of holds him back at times, right?
For sure. There's definitely a bit of a lack of composure at times, or of calculated decision making and timing. For instance, he just defaults to being aggressive, which is really entertaining and works fantastically with his frame and his mobility at the OHL level, but will need some tinkering before he makes the jump to professional hockey. But this is a 6'3", 203-pound defenseman who skates like the wind, put up over a point a game while playing second pairing minutes on both the power play and even strength for London this season. And of course, it was a tremendous team, but still, minutes-wise, it was more limited than most other high-end draft-eligible defensemen in the CHL. And he's a two-way guy who's mainly like loved for his defensive impact. So going over a point a game with those parameters is very impressive as well. So definitely growing room in his offensive development. A true two-way potential piece. I think be very interesting for the Ottawa Senators, who already have some very strong pieces on their left side. I could see them moving Thomas Chabot at some point in the next couple seasons, and Jacob Chikrin as well. But like Jake Sanderson and Sam Dickinson as the crux of the defensive core, like holding down the left side long term, is really, really enticing.
For sure. Moving on to 8th overall, we have Zeev Buium going to the Locked On Kraken. The Seattle Kraken picking him up. Their 8th overall pick here. An average size left-handed defenseman. He was measured in at 6 foot, which is good for his game and good for NHL teams wanting to pick him up maybe earlier than he's projected. He's the calmest and most poised defenseman in this draft, even more than Zayne Parekh. He's got left offensive skill, I would say, for sure. But there's still some really interesting stuff he does offensively. The way he moves from the point, the way he shifts forwards in front of him, forwards who are trying to kind of stick check him and try to get a breakaway. You're not getting the puck off of him. It's ridiculous how good he is at that. And he has those clutch genes all season. This has been one of the most consistently clutch players in the 2024 NHL draft class. Scored the insurance goal in the gold medal game of the World Juniors for Team USA, assisted on the insurance goal in Denver University's national championship game. So just been full on money all season, 50 points in 42 games. Like, just ridiculous production, something we've never seen before from an NCAA freshman. And he's good defensively. Like, he's genuinely so good defensively. I've loved his ability to close gaps off the rush, make plays defensively. It's been amazing to watch all year. We do need to speed things up here for a second segment, so we'll move right on ahead to pick number 9, and that is the Locked On Flames picking up Berkeley Catton of the Spokane Chiefs. Give me the 1-minute rundown on Berkeley Catton real quick, his game, how he plays, what makes him so good, and what makes him worth the 9th overall pick.
Yeah, so he's dynamic and very, very intelligent with the puck on his stick. He's a creative playmaker who played a ton of minutes this season with Spokane, playing like upwards of 25 to 30 minutes a night, especially during the late stretch of the season, which definitely amplified the production a little bit in terms of the raw numbers. But he did not have much support in that team, and he was really like carrying that offensive burden for them all season long. He was the top point producer in the entire CHL among draft eligibles this season. He's a 5'10", 175-pound center, but might project better as a left winger long term. Yeah. But I think great value at this stage of the draft. Very clear top line potential. He's going to need a couple seasons to develop. There's still definitely a lot of kinks in his game. The defensive engagement needs some work, but he reads the play so well. He's one of the most dynamic transition attackers in this entire draft class. He can read defensive structures and dissect them like few other players can. And the upside's really, really fun here.
Absolutely. Now we move on to pick number 10 in our rankings, and that is going to be Cole Eiserman going to the Locked On NHL, Locked On Devils, selecting him here 10th overall. And Eiserman is just the pure finisher of this class. He's the best goal scorer in this draft. There's no doubt about it. The shot is absolutely ridiculous. It flies off his stick with velocity, with power, with accuracy. I've also really liked his off-puck movement in the offensive zone and his tendency to drive the net, drive hard to the paint, and score goals from in tight rather than just relying on outside shots, which is, for me, what separates him from other kind of pure snipers in previous draft classes that have come out of the NTDP. For me, he has a bit more projectability to his offensive game. Defensively, he's a black hole, honestly. Like, he just doesn't bring much defensively at all. And I don't like the playmaking tendencies and habits that he has right now. But I've seen him kind of get more comfortable distributing, playing give and goes and that kind of stuff. So maybe he can turn that into a strength. But right now, the two big weaknesses are the playmaking and defensive game. If he gets those up to par and kind of fills out his offensive profile even further, we might be talking about a 50-goal scorer. But there's a lot of question marks in this projection, which is why he's down at 10th here in the mock draft. And to close things off for our second segment at 11th overall, Locked On Sabres pick up Carter Yakimchuk, right-handed defenseman of the Calgary Hitmen. He's aggression personified, right? Like, everything about his game is all about being aggressive, correct?
Absolutely. He's aggressive with the puck on his stick. He is a really good puck handler, and he uses that as much as he possibly can to advance the puck up the ice. Defensively, he plays with violence and physicality and, again, aggression. He really is aggression personified. He's a 6'3", 202-pound right shot defenseman with really significant offensive potential. He has an absolute bomb of a shot from the point. He uses his puck handling to access dangerous areas in the offensive zone and thread pucks towards the slot. There's a real lack of refinement in most areas of his game, and the upside here is a bit more longer term, especially for like a top 11 type of draft pick. He's going to need 3 to 4 to 5 years to develop into a trustable NHL player. But if he absolutely hits, you're looking at your number 2 big, violent offensive defenseman who might need some insulation at 5-on-5 because he's at his best when he's taking big risks, but just a really, really fun player here. And while the floor is a little bit lower, the upside's definitely enticing.
For sure. I want to see. I like composure in my defense, which is why I'm a bit lower on Yakimchuk than others. But listen, in terms of offensive upside, he's up there with the best, and Buffalo desperately needs a right D. But that's our second segment done. We'll get into picks 12 through 16 here to close off the first half of the first round mock draft, the official Locked On mock draft. Before we get into that, though, a quick word from our sponsors at FanDuel.
Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and far more. And you can bet on it all on FanDuel. You can even take your swings on the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, which are currently ongoing, with the Edmonton Oilers with their backs against the walls, looking to extend their Stanley Cup dream. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use on anything from player props to over and unders and even same game parlays, which are so much fun and definitely amplify the excitement even more, especially when you're attending an event live or it's just Stanley Cup final time. It's the time to do it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so let's close things off with the official Locked On NHL mock draft. We'll move on to picks number 12 through 16. Let's start at 12th overall. We have the Locked On Flyers picking up Konsta Helenius, the center/winger from Ukraine in Liga. He really projects as a winger for me personally, though, as a center rather for me personally. And all season, I mean, we've seen a lot of projectability from his game. I think projectability is the name of the game when it comes to Helenius, right? Like, everything's about how translatable his game is.
It really is, and he plays such an NHL role already. He's a true line connector. He's a line elevator too. He makes his teammates better. The details of the game he has down already, whether it be positional awareness or quick give and go play. progressing the play incrementally up the ice to retain possession, extending cycles, creating maybe not through the flashiest Hail Mary type of pass to the slot, but rather through very constructive and strategic, perhaps more simple plays, but very, very projectable. And he has a great impact defensively as well. He gets involved. He reads passing lanes really well. He clogs up the dangerous areas. He drops low in the defensive zone to support his defensemen. And he was doing all of this while playing against professional competition in Finland's top pro league, Liga. All very impressive. The upside isn't that of like a dynamic, like top line player here. If he's a top liner, he's going to be more of a complement and a facilitator rather than the offensive driver on that line. However, the second line upside here is really significant. Think David Krejci style of player, makes everyone around him better, can be played top PK, top power play, and it just connects play whenever he's on the ice, which coaches absolutely adore. And he's probably NHL ready in just about a year or two.
Absolutely. Moving on to number 13, we have the Locked On Wild picking up Anton Salayev, the massive left shot defenseman who played for Torpedo this season in the KHL full time. What a great season he had as well. I mean, stuck around the KHL in a top 4 role the entire year as a 6'7", 215-pound left shot defenseman. This combination of size and skating is honestly unfair. Like it doesn't make sense sometimes when you watch it. It just feels like you're watching something. It gives you kind of the uncanny valley effect, how good of a skater he is at that size. The combination of I think it's really the body proportions that make it work so well. He's not a player who's necessarily he's not long-legged. He's really well portioned, which helps him kind of burst through his strides really, really effectively. Great forward ability. He's got the potential to be one of the best gap closers in the NHL, but I just think he's way too panicky. I think his panic level's way too high. He doesn't really handle pressure all that well, which makes his projection a bit more muddy, and I don't really see any standout offensive skill in his game either, but I think he's got kind of surefire second pair defenseman kind of potential. I think it's really, really kind of a matter of certainty with him that he ends up in the NHL. And if he improves a couple things, definite second pair defenseman, maybe even a number 2, but that's kind of stretching it for me. Overall, he's a great selection here at 13. In terms of upside, in terms of certainty, he's about as good as it gets at 13. Let's move on quickly to number 14. We have the San Jose Sharks picking again, and what a selection they had. Beckett Sennecke at 14th overall. A big right winger who played for the Oshawa Generals in the OHL and was a key part of them reaching the OHL playoff, I think, finals against London. Great run from him. Really, really exploded in the second half of the season, right? He just turned into a different beast.
Absolutely. He's so much fun. He's one of the best puck handlers in this draft class. Maybe the second best after Ivan Demidov even. Like the puck skills are just absolutely insane. He's an elite level improviser. There's definitely still a lot of rawness in his game. His attacks aren't overly planned. He's still getting used to his 6'3" frame. He was like 6 inches, 7 inches shorter just a year and a half ago. So big growth spurt that he's still getting used to. But the upside here is really, really high. I think top line, like power forward who does a lot of like the offensive driving, can carry the puck up the ice on his own, is a really good forechecker, gets involved defensively, plays with grit and physicality as well as that soft skill, which is a combination that every single NHL team covets. And at 13th overall, if you're able to add Celebrini and Sennecke, oh my God, that is those are 2 core pieces moving forward. Add in one of Will Smith and William Eklund to the mix. Quentin Musty's in that organization too. A bunch of skill. That top 6 long term would be disgusting, and I want this to happen. This would be super entertaining.
Absolutely. JD's motto all year has been get William Eklund some friends, and boy, did they ever. What a haul. Moving on to number 15 here in our Locked On NHL mock draft. Locked On Detroit Red Wings picked up Michael Bronzek-Nugard of Mora IK in the Allsvenskan. Played the entire season against pros this year. Looked fantastic. He's Norwegian-born, 6'1", 207 pounds, I believe. Great power winger. I really like the power elements in this game, but what really makes him a very Steve Eiserman pick is the projectability of his defensive game, the maturity in his game. He's damn near NHL ready. Like, there's a lot of NHL tools here, and there were questions about the upside all season, but the shot really became more and more of a projectable tool as the season went on. It got clear that he's got that that true offensive element that could get him to a 25, maybe 30 goal potential. Does that make sense?
100%. I'd even extend that to 35 in terms of if he's able to hit a ceiling as a complimentary first liner with the right playmaking, like line mates. Obviously, like he's not going to score that on his own, but with support and big minutes, which I think he could earn. Like if he's playing alongside someone like Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond, oh yeah, I can see that 35 goal upside with a guy like Michael Brunswick-Nygård. I've loved him all season long. He's going to be a valuable NHL piece in whatever capacity he tops out as, whether that be a third line checking defensive specialist or a top line complementary piece, or more likely a second line Swiss Army knife that does about everything that you could possibly want him to do. Great value at 15th overall. You can't really hope for too much more in terms of a combination of high floor and high upside.
Absolutely. I think the likely solution in the NHL for Brunswick-Nygård is to pair him with Marco Kasper on a second line and just have one of the best shutdown combinations in the NHL. That would be absolutely ridiculous. Really gross, really exciting. Let's close things off here for today's episode. We've got at number 16, Locked On St. Louis Blues picking up Adam Jiricek of HC Pilsen in the Czech Extraliga. This one's a kind of contentious one. There's a lot of question marks around Jiricek. He suffered a pretty severe injury at the World Juniors in one of the first few games. Seemed like a knee laceration of some ligaments, maybe even multiple ligaments. We don't know yet. I don't think a lot of details were shared about that. But I think overall, the upside makes him pretty interesting. He's got a good combination of violence, physical tools, skating ability, and a good breakout game as well. That I think that on that, for sure, he's worth a top 16 pick. I'm just not sure how much more his game can progress, especially with that big injury. His skating being one of his key standout traits that he relies upon in his game, right? Like, if his skating is affected by his knee injury, I think that would be a kind of real bet here at 16. But what do you think?
For sure. This is a risky swing. I can see a lot of the elements that would make it, I could make it worthwhile. It's a little bit of a shot in the dark that could either really hit or really miss. And I think that the St. Louis Blues are a team that could actually make that type of swing on a player that does have this level of violence, hockey lineage, with his brother David Jiricek being one of the top defensive prospects in world hockey at the moment, and also that untapped offensive potential that he's been able to show off internationally against junior competition, which was really, really not present against pro competition. He was out of his depth playing professional hockey this season. It was not the right level for him, but big question mark, but an entertaining swing here at 16th overall.
I fully agree. And that's the top 16 of the official Locked On NHL mock draft done. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you think about the mock draft so far. Tomorrow we'll have the pick 17 through 32 released. So stick around for that if your team's picking in that range. Really interesting prospects went off the board in that range, including a couple of really interesting surprises. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, as always, please leave us a rate and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, please check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all your news and updates about what's going on around sports on YouTube's first 24/7 sports channel. And make sure to tune in tomorrow, as I said. Mock drafts continuing on. We've got 32 prospects to mock for you here. This has been Hadi Kalakesh, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, with Sebastian High, Director of European Scouting and Head Scout for Dobber Prospects. And we hope you tune in next time.